Alright, hell yeah. Welcome to another episode of Will It R1. Alright, hell yeah. This is a fantastic episode of Will It R1. But at the end of the day is like, how do we make these improvements to our own rafts? One is the take home is going to be make a foam bump out. It could just be a few inches of foam just to put your hip against. It doesn't have to hit the water line. The other is to pad out the back of the boat. Put inflatables in there so you have a place to sit so you can leverage, that back position. And you could strap inflatables in there to push down on that floor to get extra rocker, even out of the back. I think that's going to be a pretty sweet little take-home. Booyah. And I'm excited about this. Let's do a full rotation, because we got only one chamber of my boat inflated. Now my boat has 3 chambers, so one goes from the back, goes to the front, and the other chamber on the other side is deflated. Now the back of the boat should have a U, and that's also deflated. So the front is now the back. We're going to sit on that corner. It's the only corner we can test with this. But what we're going to notice in this design is, well, I don't know. It's just going to be the lightest it can be. You know what I mean? So we have rotational drag is at a minimum. And so what I'm hoping is that we can get that boof kind of down, and maybe, I don't know, even taking weight off the front, that can show that you only need this much of a boat. So it's kind of interesting just looking at this profile is all your oomph and your dynamics is going to come from placing your body on the back of the boat. And so for another video or later, I'm actually going to make sure that I fill this compartment with inflatables, so I have at least a sitting position back here. Because had I been sitting right here, you can effectively lift the boat up, but even right here, putting pressure right there would do the same. So in this boat, I can only put pressure right here, and so that's what we're going to be experimenting with. All right, hell yeah. And today's video is going to be paddling this around, and then maybe making that bump out right here, kind of that bubble butt, just tertiary stability right here. So when we do, in our neutral position, let's get in here just to show you this. So our neutral position is going to be right here, so that's going to be the water line, so you can kind of see that. Now this is going to be my neutral position, but what I'm saying is when we go to here, I do want that to go that deep into the water, but I want to go just a little bit farther. And when I do that, I want a ton of flotation to catch, and that flotation can catch as an outrigger kind of at this location, just like I would brace with my paddle out there. That's where I want that flotation to kind of capture that boat. All right, let's give this a go. Almost lost it. Oh, booyah. Alright, we're working on that, at least boof position, and just seeing if we can paddle with a paddle pry. So for sure be more pry oriented. To practice any R1 stroke is to make sure you are pry oriented, like pry first. Now I'm not going to over correct, I'm always under correcting with that pry first. Or I'm going to paddle around, get this thing up to get it juicing. yeah. So every day kind of has like the first, like, aha. This is kind of the take home, is that I'm gonna try my Paddle Cat to get it to function. Same functionality to at least show. It doesn't matter how big the boat is, you can still get it to functionally do the same thing. But the quickest improvement to a Paddle Cat is to really neck down this back compartment. That's where the Thundercloud and this boat have compartments in back here that are pretty small. So, you know what I mean? I just want to reference one of the athletes that is in the R1 doing the Thundercloud, Ben Lloyd. Check out his YouTube channel. But you know what I mean? From that Colorado, you know, I think all those Colorado, I don't know if he's from Colorado, but they all kind of developed the functionality from the back of the boat. Now, I would just want to sit like right here and get that functionality. What they do is they get back here. You know what I mean? But it's kind of useful. Like, but I just don't think you're going to go down the Stikine in this position. Now, it's kind of fun and things, but you could go down the Stikine in this position and then go back to this position and still have it functionally. There's plenty of things where you may want it to function, you know, like back here. But see, that's going to be for another video for sure. Like making this compartment so it's at the perfect level where I can just go back and I can still have my feet braced right here and I'm in the back of the boat. So even though like those paddlers have been in this position, what I think is real important for an R1 is to be able to go from this position to right here. And you can get hella far back here and still get those mechanics, especially when catching surf. That's the most amazing thing. I'm actually, you know, tip my hat. Ben Lloyd's Locksaw, he surfed pipeline. Now, I've surfed a hell of a lot, but I've never gotten a good surf on pipeline. It's one of those things where I just have to not care about, else I'll have depression. But hell yeah. But it's just a sport of inches and dynamics that are just, you know what I mean? Until someone films it, you're like, oh, that works. Let's keep doing that. Okay. I didn't even talk about the takeaway point, is that if you have a Paddle Cat, you want that back compartment to also be half of a raft. You know what I mean? And so they've actually made Paddle Cats. I think they should call them paddle dogs, but that's just me. But hell yeah! So you have your two cat tubes up front, but then you roll this back to even just make your back of the boat looks like this. You get all that stabbing ability. You get all the benefits of a Paddle Cat, but you get this, which is what I'm going to be working on with my Fat Cat. I'll just have to build a bump out and then go to this corner, and I'll just have a lot of boat in front of me. But that's the other thing with R1 Dynamics, is it doesn't matter the size of the boat. If the physics are working, they're going to work no matter the size. It's just then it's just a matter of scaling that to your preference. Hell yeah. But yeah, simply said, a Paddle Cat, you want this corner to be a position and just rocker. That's all. See this candy cane shape? You have a candy cane shape from here to like straight ahead, where a cat tube is just going to be straight across. Even if it does have a rocker, it's probably not going to be enough, because this boat might be functionally different than a lot of R1s, because where leaning on this tube gets that 3/4 of the boat out of the water is because of this I-beam floor. The I-beam floor is lower, not necessarily underneath the boat. In a lot of places it's almost level, but it sticks out right there. So if I'm in a neutral position, that I-beam floor is straight, which provides a great, you know what I mean? And it is just more for me. This I-beam floor is not necessarily rockered. It actually is dramatically straight, but the boat still has pretty good rotational qualities. But now back to this. Because this I-beam floor sticks out kind of like a diamond right in the middle and is hella lower, when you're over onto this tube, that is going to create that leverage point. So now I'm just leveraging that 3/4 of the boat out of the water. And so that's what's going to allow you just to really feel a boost stroke where you're just here and there. And booyah. I'm going to paddle this around just a little bit. I only have one other battery. But tonight I really want to work on that third stability spot. All right, hell yeah, and we better just get dumped. All right, hell yeah, here's a really good skill, is just to get into this spot and just kind of bounce your turns. Just because if you do bounce and get back to level, one, it's something fun to do, and it builds your skill, because the awful thing about R1 is just being heavily on this hip and then being able to get yourself over the top of the boat in those spots. Man, and I really think that's a lot of effort. I don't think it needs to be. You could even have a smaller R1. That's the thing with this, is you don't need much. This shows you that this weight over there really isn't even providing a lot of outrigger. So that would be a wild proposition, is to have like not much you know, not like a lowered surface here, where, you know what I mean, you could climb in easier and then water could leave because you got an inflated floor. But almost, you know what I mean, just having this at the water line, you know, where, you know, maybe it's not going to catch water, but even as is, I would be really interested to paddle this down some whitewater. The main benefit that I see actually to this design is you could have drain holes right here, because that was the one thing I was wanting to work on, is how do you make a round boat drain well, because you have inflated tubes everywhere and you can't put a hole through an inflated tube. It'd be technically difficult, but also it'd have to be small enough so you can't get arms and feet through. And so paddle rafts have kind of dictated the size of those drain holes, where you can't jam your foot through, the material's not going to tear. But if this was just solid material, just up to some sort of water line, it would fill rapidly, hell yeah, which you might want. The second it fills, you're getting it pieced out probably, or just rapidly flipped if that lip catches. But if you had a series of holes, because what I'm looking at inside the boat here is this floor is out of the water, and so those holes could be drain ports. So you could have, that's the one thing I really want, is a rapidly draining R1 boat. And that still leaves, you know, all we have done is we could still inflate the front of the boat, and this tube is still deflated. So you could have an R1 boat just minus that tube. I think it could be functionally pretty decent. I mean, most R1ers are just always on the other side anyway. All right, hell yeah. Paddle around a little bit more. All right, so this is one of the more advanced strokes that I've been working on. You know, I don't want to knock any strokes. You might as well get good at them and see what their use is. But the straight draw sideways, I don't know, coupled with that lean, that was pretty good. Especially if you can kind of get that momentum going downhill. But what you are doing is pulling your boat through the deepest part of the current. Where I have found, usually if I want to come your direction, I'm going to draw, but at some point turn your direction. So I have coupled the straight classic R1 draw
to be a little bit forward, but then swept. Or wherever it is, it feels pretty decent, but ending your stroke swept underneath the boat. So let's do an example. So I'm going to come towards you. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, if you're doing straight 90, there is no sweep to it. But what I've seen a lot of is drawing off the front. This really exposes this shoulder. That's why I just don't. I never like this. I would want a shorter paddle, and that's what I'm gonna. That's the first modification too. I run a 60-inch paddle. We're gonna do a 50. We're gonna do a 57 and a 54. I think both are plenty. Like I'm sky high on this thing. And dragon boaters, man, they're pretty low. 50, 52, 54. All right, so instead of doing a heavy draw off the front that might expose injury, what I'm gonna do is, we'll just stab a little closer or shorter, but then try to sweep it underneath, or pull that. I'm still drawing over here, but I'm drawing underneath the boat. And I don't know if you get a double physics on that one, but the second your paddle goes underneath the boat, it feels pretty good. Like it just feels kind of more natural. And that brings that around into a rudder towards you. So here it is. Sweet. Heck yeah. All right. And let's not even finish that with a pry, because that actually just generates momentum in the waves. So short stab underneath the boat. There you go. And I'll try to do that one, because I went for a pry, and I don't think you need to. I think we can just kind of keep that in line. And that's like any R1 stroke. It's kind of cool. It doesn't matter if it's super strong or effective. It's just a matter of you can kind of dial it in. So here we go. Yeah, and that one is a little bit unstable. Trying to just like control the entire boat just with this draw. Especially when we're going sideways. But hell yeah, put a little hip into it. That's been more advanced techniques this season, is to, you know what I mean, like, if that's the direction I'm going, give it a little oomph. If I'm gonna do a pry your way, you know, I can, you can always give it a little something. But yeah, definitely shifting your weight around controls that momentum. You know, mass and velocity. It's like an extra paddle stroke sometimes, especially with rotation, because, you know, if I take my body here and do that, that can kind of change the dynamics, especially for rotation. There we go. All right, hell yeah. So I think the thing that I want to grab more for stability, but I've been having really good luck with short strokes. So where your catch is just really close to the boat. The other thing might be like grab less water, you know what I mean? Like a lot washier strokes I think are a little bit better, and that's where a shorter paddle stroke you can get washier strokes. Here we go. Alright, so now I kind of understand the properties of a washed out stroke. It's almost similar to slicing your boat, slicing your paddle through the water. If I'm trying to get my paddle back into the pry position, I can slice it back there. And so a washy stroke is like, I'm grabbing too much. It's still effective, but it's like, hey, I need to go for that rudder. There's a lot of times where you reach for water and you're just in concrete, and that stroke won't go nowhere. All right, hell yeah, let's paddle around some more. And let's see what this corner does. Alright, most everything is functionally the same, and it's really cool to deflate this boat because you can kind of see that when I'm over here, that side of the boat's not even in water anyway. So besides having a little bit of mass as more of a leverage, the dynamics underneath the boat are the same. And I just think that's kind of cool from this perspective, because you can kind of see that. And so I think from the floor to this outer tube, you want that to be as cornered as possible. I don't know, just because when you're out here, you feel railed, and you can always, go to a centered position to finish the turn. And so that really makes, like with the I-beams, you can structure your I-beams where the center actually is an unstable, position where it's just at least omnidirectional. Like a kayak doesn't really have a total dead spot. It's kind of cupped everywhere, and that's what you'd want with the at least progressive rocker this way, because again, maybe you can see it so much better from this. A lot of your motion.
All right, hell yeah, I love stuff like this, you know what I mean, because I think it takes, well, I don't know, I've just developed skill of being able to prototype with total garbage. I think that's the best way. A lot of people, and even me at a younger age, is just like, if you want to do something, seems like you need to prototype by buying stuff and whatever, but hell no. So there's our first bump out. Looks pretty decent. I'm sure it will be actually pretty effective. Like I said, it's not going to be able to paddle very well, and so I shouldn't be bragging yet, but hell yeah, let's give this a go.
Alright, I probably should just test to see if I can sit on it and if the boat's not going to tip over. Alright, so first test, I think success, because I think if I leverage the boat over here, hell yeah. So yeah, that really shows it, and it even shows that having this, I don't know, it could bump up, it could be on a strap system. You don't really want straps in white water, but if this bumped up out of the water and then you go lean on it and push it back in, hell yeah. All right, I'm gonna get my earplugs and nose guard. Yeah. Now I don't want to get too rowdy. We got a lot of straps on this boat now. All right, let's do it. front. I still think it can hold a litmus test because as long as I'm doing the boat from this position, it's not getting in the way. There could be a lot of benefits to having a bump out right there because you could jam your paddle against it. So let's paddle back and forth just for the dynamics of having something like that. Yeah, but that's where I'd want it, though, you know. I was thinking you'd get away with putting it on that far corner. You could put it on that far corner, but your boat would have to be balanced over here, because, like, right now my boat wants to tip right here. That's kind of the tipping edge. But from a neutral position, if your tipping edge is now, like, rolled back, you could have that for stability. Let's try that boost stroke. I definitely notice on the booth. So if I'm in this back corner, I do have a third stability spot. The only thing we're missing, I'm going to fill up the other thwart, is I just want to shift my weight from here to here and then be able to drive leverage on that. So it just needs to be a lot taller. So that's what I've definitely thought of that. Is you want to be kind of hugged in here, but the second you go up, you actually probably want your body to be going uphill on top of something to push that down into place. Alright, so hell yeah. So my first thought is, like, you really want this neutral position to at least something to brace against. And man, this is super comfy. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the air couch. But yeah, this is really good. And you don't need it to be, you know, this far out. We've talked about how, you know, just having a very small width, 4 inches. But yeah, and if that was just a rigid, kind of rigid surface, now you have like a cockpit. And this feels really good. This is exactly what a kayaker has, because now when I do this, I can hip snap the boat back, even without being in. That's the only thing that we could do as an R1, is the second you're over here, there is no hip snap. It's just fighting for your balance. But hell yeah. And yeah, for sure. I just want to talk through this. I can always set this up, but this feels real good. Like, this might be like one of the best improvements. And now you have this. Let's try to get wet. But you have the ability to high brace the boat back. So hell yeah, I'm so glad this, you know what I mean, this week went from probably getting a dislike, you know, starting from a paddle cat that I really thought was gonna be the future. I saw my buddy R1, the high side paddle cat. It's definitely narrower, and it was just faster. And on the lock side, there was just horsetail falls. I was not able to make that left to right move. And I just saw his boat being faster, so I just equated faster with superior. But now I totally see how you could, you know, get the best of both worlds. And there is some disadvantages of paddle cats. And now you have the full range. You have everything from a traditional R boat, R1 boat, round boat, a traditional paddle cat, and then kind of where I'm trying to bring in this technology that can really, you know, you'll be able to do things. The cockpit. So this really shows that in an R1 situation, you want the cockpit. You want to be you know, feet wedged in, not too much of a box. You want to be able to get to all your spots. You know what I mean? Like, this is a pretty decent cockpit, where the Fat Cat, I just haven't had the time, but I need to build that up. You know, it should become standard with that designed in mind, where you're just like, hey, like, see where I'm at, like right here. I've always wanted this tube to be just a little bit higher. And then this bump out feels real good. So it's like, man, yeah, that now you could do hanging boofs, like paddling. Yeah, let's try to dial that in. Alright, I don't know how much battery life I have, but let's work on these braces. That's what I'm really interested in. And I'm not a kayaker, so that's, you know, I don't do a lot of high bracing. But you definitely want to take your hand to here and do that. So let's just focus on, you know what I mean, just, there you go. Let's practice that until we use this. Oh yeah. See, even at this boat is a foot too long. Like this cockpit, I want all the dynamics, like we mentioned, all those Colorado boaters. I'm so glad that came into my feed. I was like, you know what I mean? I didn't know Instagram had R1 boaters. And we got legends from Colorado pioneering this back location. And that's where I could have gone two ways. I could have been like, nah, you know what I mean? You're not going to be sitting in the back of the boat going down to class 5. But that's where I'm just like, no way. R1's all about no rules. And so I really think you want to be in this cockpit and be able to lean back and get those dynamics. So you can have a much smaller boat to where I want to be like right here. I want to be just right here, and I want my foot right there. So this is the cockpit size, and then so I would be like right here, but that same position. And this cockpit is all I would need. Well, I guess it gets a little tight because if I put this foot back and this knee drops in, my cockpit is just big enough to get this knee to drop in kind of at any place in the boat, which is probably pretty useful. But definitely you can have a rounded thwart right here where I could drop my knee into the middle. I really do not like, even on here, having this middle compartment be a rounded thwart. It should be bubbled out so I can drop my knee in. My knee actually hits these valves that I made a video on that, like, I want to be able to deflate. All right, let's do some more bracing. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Just to see like where that boat's gonna tip. Hell yeah. And it's like stuff like this. You're not going to be able to do this at a lake in probably any traditional R1 boats. But it's like, if you had a boat like this, you come to the lake, learn class 5 skills that will allow you to maybe use those braces. So while I'm high-siding, so that's the thing. Because like this is going to be elementary or key in my R1A. I never even thought that I could even make my own little bump outs. But like when I go to high side a wave, like I just jump out of the boat. So even right here, I want my hip to hit a nubbin. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to interfere with me getting in and out of the boat. Well, right there, you know, all this kind of does. But that's the trade-off, to be like, hey, I want to be able to punch into this side of the boat. Hell yeah, let's do a... Yeah, that's pretty good. That's right at the stability. Like, I ain't getting magical and putting it up and trying to get it to lay back down. All right. All right, and then with any of these modifications, just to see if you could even pull yourself back in this side without the boat tipping over. But even that feature right there is probably more of a feature of like a harder chine. Something when I do climb in the boat, it's actually building, you know, so the boat's not just going to be tipped over. All right, let's paddle around with this thing. Do that, All right, so that's hella draggy, but you know, I've already envisioned this like last night. Is you want when I go on this traditional edge, I'm able to kind of boof that in place, but I just want a little bit. So I think from this, I want to hook in with my hip. That can be irregardless of having extra flotation, but then, you know, just you wanted a smooth transition. You want this to smoothly transition all the way up. Yeah, we just got straps for days. But yeah, because paddling this with the boom stroke, it's not efficient. I don't feel any efficiency. That tube is just dragging through water. That was the other thing with a paddle cat. With the Fat Cat, it's fairly straight tubes, where if you're going to have a paddle cat for R1, I think you really do. You're not going to get this centered pivot point. You're still going to have two tubes, but we did talk about how you could make the tubes flatter on the bottom, and then I don't know if they are flatter. I don't know about that. You know, round tubes are round tubes, but for sure rockered this way. Yeah, rockered that way would be fine, because then your boat, so this is what you'd want out of your paddle cat. When I'm in the paddle cat, I'm right here, but you could still have an R1 paddle cat with a 3-tube design, or even just like whatever's hooking into the floor right here. You could yeah, it gets counterintuitive to have a paddle cat with any I-beams underneath, but that's where you have the paddle dog. You know what I mean? I really think like this, when I'm sitting in this, I'm envisioning the paddle dog. You know what I mean? Where you have two stabby tubes. That always is superior. Two stabby tubes in the middle. That's one thing where for surf, well, even for surf, you want two stabby tubes potentially. You would at least want two stabby tubes compared to just one point, which this, I'm just going to say it, this, the Thundercloud, and the Merlin all have, where the R2 paddle cats and the Slice, and I should have, I'm always nervous to mention, but definitely the
R1 athlete that's killing it in paddle caddying is High Water Ahead, and that's just the thing is I want like well, you know, I get narcissistic, but I'm not a very cool person. All those other athletes are cool people. I just want them to do their thing and turn this sport into a thing. I'm just doing the science, which is super geeky, but hell yeah. Yeah, I envision, yeah, so hell yeah, like, I think that's, you know what I mean, and it's the paddler and the boat on that one. I could see it, that paddle slice. I wish I had a paddle slice over a Fat Cat, but I wish I was an RMR athlete and we could design the paddle dog through RMR. I could see that going a lot better than Sotar, just because they're such a, I don't know, but they have the best material. They got the urethane and they have the $4,000 boats. But it's like, if you could have had a Huffy designed like a Santa Cruz 30 years ago, you'd have been like, hell yeah. And all that design is just design. There's no extra materials involved. It's just mechanics and physics. And that's what I for sure understand. And that's what I'm trying to pull out is like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's a race. Be the first to take these improvements and take them to the R1 market. You know what I mean? Hell yeah. And even just this week, we've come across like 3 or 4 or 5 that won't inhibit the performance of a boat. You know what I mean? They're just additional things like, you know, cockpit placement, definitely this diamond shape, being able to lean, you know, get, if you can't just sit in your boat and have that 3/4 pop up, you know what I mean? It's going to make this boost stroke harder. Definitely no one shrunk the boat down because they're thinking they need it to have 2 people in it. Hell no. The industry needs to start making the first R1 boat, which could be this. So I'm going to get my tape measure out and we're going to measure this, because with 2 little R1, you know what I mean, dogs out front, hell yeah. Hell yeah, hell yeah. You got your dogs out front. You know, it's not a paddle cat. It's a dog sled. You know what I mean? It's the paddle dog. Hell yeah. So yeah, so you got your 2 dogs out front, and then this thing is its length. You know what I mean? And it can be a foot shorter, because I've said like right here, I'm chill with being right here, but I want that bump out to be right there. I want the back of the boat. I already want to be on this back of the boat right there, because I can always switch right here, which also means that I want the boat, even this needs to come in 1/4. Like this is still too wide over there. I don't need all that. You know what I mean? And so, hell yeah, let's paddle around. And we're basically done. Well, let's do more of these braces. I think since we have this set up, we'll have the nose plug on. Just to see how high we can get. Yeah, I can feel that. It's cool. Okay, wrap it up. Since we're just late in the video, you can't see anything. This is just kind of like, hey, the extra, I need to make a video on this. But where you get your stability, all right, make it simple. Why you're good on your onside, I have found it's because of this leg right here. What happens is you're not just sitting on like a point on your hip. This part of your thigh is kind of your flat spot. So when you do go out here, you know what I mean? My legs are chill, but this is kind of my dynamic flat spot from there to there. That is kind of what's keeping me in to the R1 position. I mentioned this because when I go to my offside, it feels like I'm sitting in a point. My knees are straight up. This is no longer engaged. So that's been the biggest improvement to my offside, is to be like, hey, get that engaged right there, And so now I have this, but it's still like, it doesn't feel good. But when I go to my strong side, it's exactly what I'm doing. And so this is one thing you can do. Go from knees up, and to sweep your legs this way, and just know that you're not just on kind of one point. You're pushing in with that leg. So that's probably the first positional thing you can do. Sit in your offside, knees up. I feel like I'm on my hip on a point, and I'm gonna sweep my knees, and then just and it doesn't feel good. Like, even to me, my offside feels garbage still. But yeah, that's something I need to practice every day. So hell yeah. But we need to make a video on that. But it seems like every modification of the stroke, you know, moving around is just a shifting of this. I call it a plank, you know what I mean? So your balance point is a plank of this part, your hip to right there. And that's where you're getting all your stability. It still feels awful because you're just crunching in. But over time, this position just becomes natural, and you're just like, hell yeah, this is what we do. All right. Oh man, grab Olav's. Oh, let's do some more. Yeah, and let's get braced in, because there is some reps like, hey, if I'm braced, but this thing is just too far away. We've already talked about that. Note to self, I even have more locations, so I can move this thwart. So my next time out, same setup, move the thwart in, and then I'm able to lean out over this. And might as well, we have enough light that even if it gets too dark, I can at least talk my way through that. Because, yeah, let's do that. Let's move that. All right, super bummer. I can't move my thwart because we have that system in place that keeps my legs from going underneath those thwarts. So it's in its position. That's all we could do. So, but yeah, these could be moved my way just a little bit more. Let's see if we can at least move them my way just a little bit. Oh, but it feels so good, man, because you can just edge your boat, and now you're not doing it at such a crazy balance point. It's just balancing. So let's just kind of work on balancing, see how far we can go. And you know, in a kayak, this is what you would do. You go up to a dock edge. Yeah, so it's still, there's no force stability. If we're calling that the third stable spot, because here's neutral, here's number, you know, here's the second spot, normal paddling, but then you have this third spot out here. And yeah, there's no dock here no more, so I can't go up to a dock edge. That's kind of a bummer. But hell yeah. Let's see if we can. Oh yeah, there we go. So yeah, we'll just feel like where the balance point is. Alright, get that too. Okay, hell yeah. And you could couple it with a balance point over there, like obviously. That's kind of what it's missing. It feels like, you know, now you're tipping at that location. You're in a kayak, when you're braced sideways, your chine is all the way across, where this one wants to turn. So that would be interesting, because that would mean that you could have an hourglass shape to a boat, because essentially you want it to function everywhere about the same, so you can jump around and do the same things. But hell yeah. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, but that wants to rotate, so when I go onto this, it's just diving onto that tube, so there's nothing else. Like even having the front of the boat, let's pump up the front of the boat. Yep, and that might give us a little more stability up there. Cool. All right, hell yeah. You can't see anything, but what we did is we put this bump out